If we can just, so that's the recording. Thanks, Conte, for waiting till I take a breath. And we are getting ready to start here. So maybe if we just put up the next slide while we get going here. This is the information that I just shared about how what you see in here today is being utilized. Welcome to the call. My name's Katie, in case we haven't met before, Director of GFAN. Our briefing today is going to be on the results report that the Global Fund Secretariat is planning to release on Wednesday of this week, alongside an update around the campaign for the replenishment and other sort of reflections around the replenishment that is ongoing and likely hitting fever pitch at the moment at the Global Fund. As always, we do have interpretation available. Nous avons interprétation disponible en français et vous avez seulement à choisir le canal que vous voulez dans les commandes Zoom en bas de votre écran. So I don't want to take a bunch of time that could be best served by hearing from colleagues at the Global Fund sharing the information that they've come here today to share. So I'm going to pass it on first to Ernest Waititu from the Global Fund Secretariat, who leads on executive communications. I looked you up, Ernest, on LinkedIn to see what your title was. I don't know what that means, but I do know that it's been a few years now that we've had the pleasure of welcoming you for these types of briefings. So Ernest, welcome. We will get your presentation up and over to you.
Thank you, Katie. I think all that what that title means is I do a lot of writing, including for this report. So I have the pleasure, or I lead the team of writers that put together this report. So I have the pleasure to present this report to all of you. I'll try to be quick, 20 minutes, that's what I got. It's a big report, as you all know, so I'll try to do it justice in 20 minutes. So let's get started. Now, the first thing I want to do, as I usually do when I do this presentation, is to start by recognizing that this is not the report by the Secretariat, or this is not a report of the results by the Secretariat. It is the results of the whole partnership, collective impact, collective programmatic results that we have achieved in the last year. From Geneva to all those many places where the work continues in the front lines, like in the case of the cover of this year, we have Shiwafu Abdul Karim. This is a woman from Nigeria who works on this photo, actually. This was a photo of her distributing SMC, seasonal malaria chemoprevention. That's a preventive tool for young children and mosquito nets, both integrated. We know that in places like Nigeria, this is real life-saving work, and we will see later in the report how these kind of tools and innovations continue to make a huge difference to the fight against these diseases. Next slide. Let's keep going, but actually before we get to, as those slides roll on, I wanted to actually also mention what is available for us as tools for this report. The first one is the PDF. That's usually 100 pages of a report for those of you who like to sink their teeth into a huge report. It's gonna be there available on Wednesday. There's a 2-page at a glance. If you want to see that 400 pages in 2 pages, it's available. We also offer a web version on our website. This one allows you to query different countries. You can go in there and say, country A, how many mosquito nets did we distribute in 2024? And you're going to be able to see that. We also provide a social media toolkit that allows you to be able to amplify this in bite sizes. So those are some of the tools that are going to be available. in case somebody needs much more, we are also happy to offer key messages and talking points on need basis. Next slide. So I also wanted to start by saying there is an element of this report that is not your traditional take. Usually, Peter will do what we call the ED letter, and it starts with an editorial. This is about a few, maybe 2,000 words that talks about the results, but also talks about the progress that we are making. But this is a special year, we know, for so many reasons. So one of the things that Peter does in his letter this year is to actually articulate our change narrative. We know that this is a big year of change, so we recognize that in this report. So he starts by, first of all, articulating all those things that make us a special partnership, the agility, the country-driven elements, all those things that make us special, but then very quickly moves on to what are we changing? We continue to, of course, challenge ourselves to change. In the way we do things, we continue to recalibrate our grants, enhancing precision, strengthening our strategic framework for greater results. And I think that's a good segue. Those greater results is a good segue to our next slide, which is the big lives saved number. And we are at 70 million lives. You will remember 2024, we reported 65 million lives. Now this is a climb to 70 million lives. That is what we are reporting this year. Next slide. A bit of a breakdown, beyond the 70 million lives, the other key numbers we report is number of people on ARVs, the number of people treated for TB and mosquito nets distributed. Those are our big numbers. We'll continue to unpack them as we go. Next slide. Besides those numbers, of course, one of the things that should not be lost on us as we talk about this report is the broader impact that we continue to achieve, both in terms of, besides investing in HIV, TB, and malaria, we continue to see a lot of progress in the way we are investing in health systems, but also taking it one step further. This impact has those numbers have real impact on the ground. We still have that number where we talk about life saved in 15 sub-Saharan African countries. Life expectancy rose from 49 to 61 years. You may have seen this number in our investing, in investment case earlier in the year. But the key thing about that change in life expectancy is the attribution to HIV, TB, and malaria. Half of that gain is attributed to AIDS, TB, and malaria. So, and besides and beyond life expectancy, we of course know that this means more economic productivity and broader socioeconomic development in other countries where we invest. Next slide. So moving on to the disease-specific elements, this is the slide I call State of the Fight. And very quickly, if you look at this slide, it tells you about the impact we are achieving when it comes to HIV, TB, and malaria. You can see where we are when it comes to the global trends, when it comes to the global target pathway to 2030. For HIV, again, as we have said, where we were in 2024, we are within reach, both in terms of AIDS-related deaths, but also in terms of new HIV infections. This can be achieved by 2030. Of course, we know things have changed a bit since 2024, but that's the state of the fight as of 2024. Let's keep going. Next slide. Very quickly, this slide is the one that shows the counterfactuals. The impact that we are making, the disease trends. If the Global Fund had not invested, the disease, AIDS-related deaths would have grown by 90%. What we are seeing now is a reduction of 74%. When it comes to infections, it would have, the infections, HIV infections would have grown by 75%. What we are seeing now is a 62% decline. Something else worth noting there is when you look at the age-sex breakdown, you see that HIV for 15 to 49 years still significantly remains, when it comes to new HIV infections, they still affect women more. We still see more infections there, new infections, HIV infections among women 15 to 49. That is 39% for men, 44% for women. Next slide. And that's the treatment, the growth of treatment. That's the massive growth of HIV treatment over the last 2 decades. 2002, only 139,000 people had access to HIV treatment. Now we are talking about 26.2 million globally. It's a growth. We are hitting 79%. We know that in places where we have made a lot of progress, like Africa, in 2002, there were only about 50,000 people on ARVs. Now it's, more than 20 million. Next slide. And this, of course, is the HIV treatment cascade. You've seen the 79% number. I guess the other thing to highlight there is how successful we've been on the first element of the cascade. 88% of people know their HIV status. Keep going. Next slide. A key number here to highlight is PrEP, which has grown by 375% in the last year. And this is talking about treatment. You will see, and I'll highlight a few of these numbers. It will show how we are also doubling down on prevention, but also innovations like PrEP. 1.4 million people on PrEP. Last year, we reported about 300,000. I think in 2018, it was just about 66K people who are on PrEP. Now we are talking about 1.4 million. Next slide. That slide is just to mention that we have a Namibia case study in the report for HIV. So look out for that. Next slide. TB treatment, when it comes to TB state of the fight, you will see this is not as good as we have seen with HIV, still a huge gap there. But actually with TB, we are seeing great momentum in the last few years. And we feel like, we may not hit the global pathway, but the NTB strategy 2035 is something that is totally possible. Next slide. Again, the counterfactuals. If this partnership had not been investing in the fight against TB, we would have seen 134% growth in deaths. Now we are seeing a negative -40%. When it comes to TB cases, we would have seen a growth of +40%. Now we are seeing a +1%. That is interesting. That is important to highlight because what you're seeing there is these are the rates. Yes, there is growth there in TB cases, but if you factor in the growth of population, this is still a remarkable impact. Let's keep going. Next slide. Again, TB treatment, you see the growth from 2002, 3.1 million, now all the way to 7.2 million. That's the 2023 number. Next slide. One key element here to highlight, of course, the 7.4 million number, but also the fact that the key thing when it comes to TB treatment is to get people diagnosed and on treatment. Because when we do that, our treatment success rates are very high. You can see we are at 88% out of what the 2025 target is 90%. Next slide. I mentioned about highlighting how we are doubling down on prevention. If you look at people in contact with TB patients that received preventive therapy, TB preventive therapy there, 3.4 million. And that's actually a growth from about 78,000 just in 2017. So a huge growth there in terms of TB prevention. Let's keep going. Again, we have a case of Indonesia, so look out for Indonesia as our example in the case study for TB. Next slide. Malaria is a bit of a different ballgame. You can see, and this is a story we have told in the last few years, we have seen stalled progress. And you can see almost a flatlining, especially when it comes to malaria incidence. And if you go to the next slide, you will see on the left side, cases have actually grown by 8%. It shows you very well that we are not keeping track with coverage, which is we are not preventing enough cases. Well, it's still progress. These cases would have grown by 81%, but there's still more work to be done when it comes to malaria. When it comes to deaths, we are doing a good job, and you'll see that they have reduced by 29%. They would have grown by 94%. Let's go to the next slide. And that's the coverage story. We are at 61% in terms of mosquito nets coverage. We know that that number is not good enough. It needs to be bigger. So it talks to why investments in malaria are very key in this time, because we are not keeping up with coverage as it pertains to growth of population. Next slide. And besides coverage, of course, you can see also the demand creation is needed there. Mosquito nets population use is only 53%. Next slide. A key number to highlight here, again, speaking about how we are doubling down, not just on treatment, but also on prevention, is SMC, seasonal malaria chemoprevention. 50.9 million children received seasonal malaria chemoprevention. That is a growth from 5 million just a few years ago, I think in 2017. This is a 10-fold increase. So SMC is becoming a very vital tool for prevention of deaths for children under 5. Next slide. Nigeria is a case study in the report. You will see that if you take a look, you read through the report. Next slide. Very quickly, the things I want to highlight on health and community systems is how we have invested vigorously in the last year in health and community systems. 2.7 billion in health and community systems in 2024, delivered unprecedented scale in areas like, next slide, we are talking about the health workforce, community systems, surveillance and data, labs, waste management, supply chains, medical oxygen. And this is a factor of two things. One is that, we have invested a lot of our C19 money through reprogramming in health and community systems. But also the other element is that now we are also reporting our contributory health and community systems. Contributory RSSH, what does that mean? It means we are counting the investments we make in HIV, TB, and malaria that contribute to strengthening health and community systems. Next slide. One good example is our growth in terms of investments in lab systems. And there is a graphic that shows how we have grown in the last few years. Not just investments in labs. We are not talking about consumables here. We are talking about investments in lab systems. Next slide. Again, speaking of scale, one of the things we can highlight here is how our our investments in health products is huge in terms of scale. Each year, around 2.5 billion in country grants are used to procure health products. And another element to show you about, to tell the story of our scale is how we are in, the kind of investments that goes through the PPM. In 2024, PPM managed 1.7.8 billion in orders across 81 countries. Next slide. There is a case study from Ethiopia. You can take a look at that. Community health workers in Ethiopia. Next slide. One of the elements we are covering in this report is about our agility in times of crisis. And there are a few elements to show that. One very topical element is how we are reprogramming for the times of reduced, when we are seeing reduced investments in health, how in the recent months, we are supporting countries to reprogram and reprioritize grants across all the activities. Next slide. Again, in terms of agility, we talk about challenging operating environments. These are the countries where we see crises of different types. We invest up to 24 billion in those countries, and that's the number reported in the report. Next slide. Again, you see that in emergency funding, which we have. Next slide. Ukraine is an example of how we continue to respond with agility, and that is fleshed out in the report. Next slide. In terms of investing for impact, this again shows the scale of our investments. Up to date, we have invested $70 billion in the fight against these three diseases. In 2024, that was $4.8 billion. Next slide. That shows the scale of our investments globally. 3 out of every $4 that we invest in this partnership go to Africa. Next slide. And that is how we look in terms of our investments across the three diseases. This keeps shifting up and down within range, depending on either reporting or whatever investments that came that year. That's how it looks. 26% for HIV, 73% for TB, 59% for malaria. Again, that is the level of international grants provided by the Global Fund in 2024. I think that's my last slide.
Yeah.
Next slide, let's see.
I think
that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernest. That's very helpful. That's a lot to get through. And we have a number of other slides because we have other colleagues from the Global Fund who are joining us. But Ernest, you're staying with us through the end of the hour, I hope. And we do hope to reserve some time for questions towards the end of the call. But I did just want to put out a feeler out there. If there's a significant question for clarification at this time on anything that Ernest just presented, noting it's not a time per se for questions or discussion, but if there was a clarification that was needed. Otherwise, I would ask that you put your questions, comments in the chat, and we will engage with our colleagues at the Secretariat through the rest of the call to see if we can get answers for you online today or in follow-up from today's call. Okay, so not seeing any questions for clarification at this stage, although there is a question from Sophie in the chat. If colleagues from the Secretariat can have a quick look at that. I will pass it over to, I believe it's Charlie Spooler from the Global Fund, who is speaking next and giving us a bit of an update around the campaign. Is Charlie online? Sorry.
Yes,
there
I'm here.
Lovely.
Thanks, Katie.
Hello.
Hi everyone, pleasure as always to see you all and to be presenting this update. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the upcoming results report launch off the back of Ernest's presentation, and then a bit more about the activations that we have in the works and what's coming up. Next slide, please. But before we get into that, we just wanted to set the scene a little bit and recap where we are from a strategic perspective. As everyone well knows, we started off the year in a rather strange way, and that had a big impact on the campaign. We pulled our Stop at Nothing tagline, and we really had to take quite a cautious approach because of the volatile political situation. This did mean taking a low profile across the campaign because of these sensitivities. Today's context, things have moved along. The risk is by no means disappeared completely, but we are in a shifting space. The geopolitical focus has continued to shift. And right now, we do feel that it's the moment to be sort of selective and careful in re-establishing some momentum and visibility around the campaign. The results report launch provides a really powerful hook for this. It's a good news moment to ignite momentum for the campaign's final push. So we really want to start doing a bit more targeted influencing, raising visibility in particular markets where we think it could move the needle. We also think now's the time to really unify some of these big campaign strands that we have in the works, the results report being the nucleus of that, but also our various creative activations, our advocacy and our private sector activity as well. And importantly, we also want to inject some energy into the campaign as we look towards the final few months. So this is the time that we've really been thinking an energetic, unified rallying cry would bring together a lot of this activity and create a bit of a surge in momentum. We're also at the point where we really do want to be able to offer decision makers a powerful call to action and channel emotion and humanity throughout our communications when we need it most. Next slide. So what that means is we are reactivating the Stop at Nothing tagline, but we're doing it in a different way. We are softening the overall line, making it more of an invitation rather than a command. We are adding a bit more of framing, messaging. If you go to the next slide, Katie, we've got two versions of this tagline now. One, together we must stop at nothing, and a second one, stop at nothing to end AIDS, TB, and malaria. We think this helps with the de-risking, it helps it avoid misinterpretation, and it means that we can really, really emphasize and ground this call to action in our impact and in the lives saved messaging. But we are excited to bring it back, and we think it's going to help increase the impact of the communications over the next 2 months. Next slide. Here's a little bit about how this would be used. Stop at Nothing is not going to appear on everything in the way that Fight for What Counts or Step Up the Fight did in previous years. We're not going to be amplifying or pushing it in quite the same way as previous campaigns. There is still some risk mitigation that we're aiming to do. But what we do want to do is incorporate it when it's really going to add a sort of energetic surge, a call to action, and really bring a lot of our messaging together. And here's just a few examples of where we see it working in our film scripts, in contextualized tweets, on selective merch, on some of our campaign assets where we're really sort of spotlighting and heroing the people on the front lines, and on some of our sort of big bold messages. So this is where we would see it being used primarily. Next slide, please. And what does that mean for the results report launch and what's coming up? So as mentioned, the results report launch itself is a powerful hook, and from that we want to create a bit of a groundswell around the campaign that's going to help put us on a bit of an upward surge for the next few months. So Ernest just talked you through the body of the report. That's going to be launched on the 10th. There's going to be an advocacy push around that. We will have our usual toolkit packed full of assets, resources, key messages for everyone in the partnership to use. There'll be lots of sort of thought leadership pieces going out. So for at least 24 hours, the focus and spotlight will be on the results report and the data headlines proper. And then as we move to the next day, we're going to sort of broaden it out, and we're going to launch our new hero campaign film, 70 Million Lives, 70 Million Reasons Why. I think you've all seen the sort of interim version, which was 65. But we've now updated this, and then this is the moment that we're giving that the external launch. Previously, this has only been seen in closed door settings because we were saving the film for now, when we could really do it properly and obviously give justice to the new number. So the 11th is when the film goes live. We will have lots of sort of short social reels highlighting the film. It's going to be a busy day with lots of amplification around that. At the same time, there will be a big global media push that our PR team will be running. We've got some different press conferences happening, and there's a big sort of thought leadership push. And we're also going to be really sort of trying to dial up the messenger endorsement and amplification. So, when we talk about trying to increase our visibility in a meaningful way, we're also trying to amplify the voices of support and create that chorus of support around the Global Fund, really making sure that that's grounded in impact messaging. So obviously, every one of our GFANers has a role to play in that. We hope that you'll support us with the amplification, but we'll also be looking more broadly across our networks as well to try and broaden out the amplification of those key assets. Next slide. In addition to the results report toolkit that you'll all be familiar with, it goes out every year, it goes out on the same morning that the results report is published. We're also going to be publishing a campaign toolkit. So you've all seen lots of the great assets we've got from the Fabric activation, our Global Health Security series. We've got lots of sort of bread and butter assets around, that kind of have that broad campaign messaging. We're going to pull all of this together into a toolkit. It'll be a sort of one-stop shop asset house that everyone can dive into. And we'll be releasing this a couple of days after the results report has launched to, again, support with that campaign push. We'll also give you a really solid idea of how Stop at Nothing is being applied and used in this context, so that you have an idea of the application use for your own communications as well. Next slide. This is how it all comes together in terms of the sequencing. We have our embargoed press briefings to start. The results report launches on the 10th. The film is then launched on the 11th. Obviously, there's lots of social media amplification going on around this time, and then the campaign push really kicks off on the Monday. We will be doing some direct outreach to people across the partnership, encouraging them to share the film. We will continue pushing the film with lots of social media highlights, so there'll be lots and lots of great stuff for you all to share. And then this will continue through to UNGA High Level Week as well. We will then sort of pivot and have slightly more of a private sector focus during UNGA as well. We've got a new film series launching called Unstoppable Partnerships, where private sector voices talk about their reasons for supporting the Global Fund. So again, there's a lot of emphasis on reasons why, sort of impact-driven reasons for supporting the Global Fund. So this all comes together, but builds up in layers to hopefully create a really meaningful sort of surge of momentum around the campaign and results report. Next slide. Looking more broadly at our creative activations now, I think everyone is familiar with our Fabric activation. So far, we've launched 2 out of our 4 stories. Sibu's story and Annie's story are both live, and the response to that has been really great. So we're really thrilled about that. We've got 2 more stories in the works. We've got Ivan's story from Bolivia and Nuruddin from Nigeria. Both of these films have been shot now, so we're in the editing stage of both. We're just looking at the timing for releasing these, so I'll have a bit more information on that in the coming weeks, but we're really excited to get these stories out. Next slide. This is just a bit of a snapshot of some of the wonderful solidarity items we've created to bring these remarkable stories to life. I think lots of you have got some of these, have engaged with some of these already. We've got fans, we've got notebooks. The notebooks are special because they're customized for the decision maker and often gifted in very closed door settings. So they're quite special, but we also have things that are for everyone. We've got postcards, we've got tote bags, bandanas. So, if anyone is having events where these would be useful, you can make requests to us. We've got lots coming up where these are going to be activated as well. Next slide. A little look at what else we have at the moment. So hopefully everyone's aware of our Global Health Security microsite that we launched in early July. This is in stark contrast to the fabric. You know, we've been making sure that we are still thinking about our ethos, logos, pathos strategy. So whereas the fabric is kind of deeply rooted in that sort of emotional, very universal side of things, this is very much the logos. So it's the data, it's the facts, it's trying to meet the decision makers where they are at the moment. There's an intense interest around this topic at the moment, and this site is helping us engage. We're really pleased with the reach and performance so far. It's doing really well. Our social team is doing lots of pushing. There's lots of assets. Hopefully you've seen all of these already, but these will also be included in the campaign toolkit that's going out. Next slide. Is another activation we've been working on that hasn't launched yet, but will be launching soon. This is a spotlight on return on investment. So again, continuing with the logos, the data, the sort of hard evidence. We have done a deep dive into Ethiopia. So looking at how global health investments are delivering significant returns in Ethiopia. It's a really fantastic piece of work that we're turning into a wealth of different assets. There will be slides for use in presentations. There will be a brochure. There'll be a whole social media campaign around this, just like we did with the global health security. And we're also going to be using this, and I think we are already using this for media engagement as well. So do look out for this one. Next slide. Oh, and that's me done. I'll be handing over to Diane now, I think. Thanks, everyone, and happy to take questions at the end.
Thanks, Charlie. Diane, over to you in the room. We did hear from Francois just now about 2 months ago in terms of the 8th replenishment campaign. So just passing over to you to give us a little bit of insight here in this sort of final mile, and just a note to colleagues, again, to, you know, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. We'll try to answer them here, but also following Diane's comments here and wrap up from the Secretariat, we will open up for questions to everyone. So Diane, over to you. So we're not hearing Diane at the moment. Still not, or at least I'm not. I understand it's a new system.
It indicates that you're muted on Zoom. I don't think it's your mic. I think it's the...
Okay. Can you hear me here?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi.
So much for technology. Yes. We were this close to getting it right. Hi, everyone. So just briefly, if we can go to the next slide, please. The rolling replenishment has started to roll. So we do have a number of public and private announcements that have already been made, totaling, as you can see, I'd like to say nearly $700 million so far, for public to private. And we're super excited about the fact that we've got some momentum. A number of these pledges are increases, and at a minimum, they are maintenance pledges. So we're very pleased with that. That is absolutely what the trend we want to see. And we expect the momentum to gain speed now. In case anyone wasn't counting, we have about 10 weeks left of this replenishment before we hope to wrap up and have a final number. So not a lot of time. Next slide, please. And the next major platform that we'll be looking at is the UN General Assembly, where we're hoping to have a series of pledge announcements throughout the week. You can see here in red convenings that are specifically Global Fund related, but everything that's shown on this timeline, from the goalkeepers event, which kicks off the week for us on Monday the 22nd, right through to the Global Citizen event on Saturday the 27th. We will be hoping that our partners use the opportunity to advocate for the Global Fund's replenishment and to announce pledges along the way as well. Our specific events are a invitation-only event on Wednesday a Global Fund eighth replenishment reception. Both of our co-hosts will be represented, and we hope for a series of pledges there. We're also convening a breakfast just on the margins of the G20 foreign ministers meeting on Thursday, the 25th, where we also hope for strong advocacy for our replenishment, as well as restatement of some of the pledges that have been made. And we have some private sector convenings, both at the Clinton Global Initiative and Africa Frontline First Catalytic Fund, where some of our private sector supporters will be discussing and advocating for us. Next slide, please. You can see on our timeline that we're really hoping that this is the final sort of push, the next 10 weeks. We had a very good outing at TCAD a couple of weeks ago in Japan, with great advocacy from African heads of state and a lot of meetings with Japanese representatives. And we, please, can you switch it off? And then we move, sorry, we have sound problems here in the room. And then we move through to the World Health Summit after the UN General Assembly, where we're hoping for additional pledges that week, both public and private. We have a number of other advocacy events, most of them in specific capitals, before we move down to South Africa for a series of events, starting with the G20 Health Ministerial, where we will have a special session dedicated to the eighth replenishment, and then through to the week of events that will take place, starting on about the 18th of November, through to what we anticipate to be the final moment, which is probably going to take place on the 21st of November. We're hoping to get save the dates out for that event soon. Just a reminder, it is a hybrid event, so the majority of people will be invited to attend virtually. And the final sort of pledging, any countries that and donors that haven't pledged yet will pledge that day. And then we hope to wrap up and announce the number in advance of the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg then in November. Next slide, please. So just a reminder that we continue to focus on ensuring that our donors convert their seventh replenishment pledges. And this is going very well, I should say. We are at about 83% conversion at the moment. So a huge thank you to all of you who have worked very closely in many, many places with our current donors to make sure that budgetary provision is there and that payments are made by our donors. And it shows a really strong relationships that we have also with many of our public and private donors. As Charlie and Ernest have laid out, we have a lot of messaging now to run with, both from our results report and our rejuvenated campaign, where we will be pursuing a lot of that messaging going forward. We've got a lot of new data to run with and all of those things. So we're doing all of that over the next couple of weeks, and I'm excited for all of the new tools that we're going to be rolling out in the next week as well. The coordination with the two host countries is going very well and increasing in frequency. It's really a huge amount of engagement and work, and both of the co-hosts are doing an amazing job convening in various markets. They have their ambassadors mobilized, they have their ministers mobilized. So there's a lot of bilateral work going on behind the scenes, and we hope to continue that. And we are also hoping to work, of course, with all of you to really accelerate and advance our advocacy over the next couple of weeks with our champions, with our voices, and so on, to make sure that we can make the most of the next couple of weeks. So thank you. I think that's me wrapping up the presentation from our side, Katie. So happy now to move to questions and discussion if possible.
Thank you so much, Diane. Thanks to you and Charlie and Ernest and the team that is behind all of you that has put this together. I know some of them are also on the call today. So just noting that there are a few questions sort of in the chat that have been covered around when the embargo on this information lifts, which is noon Central European Standard Time, so noon Geneva time on Wednesday. So again, you will receive the slides from today via PDF over the GFAN listserv after this call. And that information is for you to prepare, to understand, to ask more questions as needed, but is not for publication or dissemination until after that noon on Wednesday of this week in European time. There were also questions just so that everybody's sure around 2024. These are the results from the 2024, even though it's the results report 2025, these results go to the end of the year last year because that's what's available at this time. And then just also that there's not as much information in here, but there is a little bit around co-financing, which is one of the questions that was asked. So I would invite colleagues, if you do have other sort of questions or comments at this time, to use the raise hand function or to let us know in the chat that you do have a question or a comment for colleagues. It's always helpful if you can keep them as brief as possible. But I will open it up now and give colleagues a moment to see if they can find the raise hand function, which at least on my system these days is under the React button, if you have that on your Zoom app. Perhaps it's okay with the Secretariat if we put back up some of the slides as we're talking from Ernest's presentation. I don't know, Conte, if you still have that at your fingertips, or Vita, I'm not sure which one of you is doing it. I think, the question was asked in the chat about, how to respond to what has been just exactly what Tabby has just put in terms of how you're going to be balancing, the fact that these are 2024 numbers and the world has completely changed. And so while these are very, interesting, positive, real sort of numbers and messages, how you plan as the Secretariat to talk about the fact that they don't have as much bearing at the moment, given what's happened this year. So I'm not sure who might like to take that question. But Ernest, I don't know if you wanted to start, but also Charlie and Diane, if you come in from sort of a comms and donor relations perspective, that would be helpful. And if there are any other questions, again, you can post them in the chat or use the raise hand function.
Thank you. We are definitely acutely aware that the world has changed in the last few months. And first of all, this report, as you know, we report the results of the year before. And that's one of the things that we grappled with as we were writing this report. But what you will see across the report, we are threading and moving back and forth. We are looking back and looking forward and talking about what we are already beginning to see in countries. Now, I don't want to say that there's going to be a lot about the impact because, again, this is a data-driven report. We don't have data of, tangible data of what is happening. But the tone of the report is one that recognizes that the 2024 numbers are likely to look, the 2025 numbers reported next year are likely to look very different. So you will see across the report the recognition of the recent funding cuts that, have hit our programs. And that is threaded in as we write that. Now, in addition, our technical teams are working on messaging that can, when needed, support any questions that might occur in regard to what are we expected to see next year. So we are working on a package that is going to be available in the coming days that can give us a little more in regard to the kind of things that we are seeing in countries. Again, across the report, there's a bit of a balancing act between 2024 and already what we can expect to be a different scenario. Thank you.
I lost my screen there. Thanks, Ernest. Diane, did you want to jump in with anything? You look like you do. Yeah, there we go. So go ahead.
I found my physical hand before I found my virtual hand. Yeah, maybe just to add on to what Ernest is saying. Look, a results report is always backward looking. That's kind of the point, right? So of course it's our obligation to give you all as stakeholders a report out of what was achieved up until the end of last year. So that is what this is. And I think it's really important for us to show that we can, as a partnership, achieve these results, that this is something that is working. 70 million lives saved is not nothing. It's really, really important. And it gives us more ammunition to show what is in jeopardy in terms of the world having changed. The world hasn't changed so much that we don't still need to keep 25.6 million people on antiretroviral therapy. That is an obligation that we have as our mission. We need to continue to fulfill the promise of this partnership. And so I think, if anything, it just sharpens our need to say, this is one of the mechanisms that works. We can't let everything fall apart. We can't afford to slide back in the fight against these diseases. And as Ernest is saying, there's slightly nuanced storylines in each disease and in relation to health systems, in relation to some of the work we've been doing on things like oxygen, that are really important individual stories around what we've achieved, what we can achieve, and what work is still left to be done. So you can, and as he says, throughout the report, we've tried to do that. We've said, this is what's been achieved, and here are the challenges we face going forward. This is what's been achieved, and here are the things we can still do. This is what's been achieved, and here's an opportunity to do even more with some of the new tools that are arriving this year. So lots has changed this year in terms of the funding landscape, but also there are new tools that are available, like lenacapavir, like our dual active ingredient bed nets and other things that we should be seizing on to finish the job. And so I think we need to live in both of those worlds as we roll out this report. And I think use it to show that progress is still possible. And yes, things are difficult, but we can't afford as a partnership to let things go back to the dark days that we all are very happy that we don't live in anymore.
Yeah. Thanks, Diane. I think that's helpful. And Ernest, thank you as well, in terms of, the results report itself does not necessarily address this issue directly, but some of the complementary tools and communications will, is, I think, the short answer. I'm seeing a hand raised. I'm not exactly sure whether that's Sophie or somebody else from the communities delegation. So I'm going to turn to them to unmute, and just noting that there are, for the Global Fund Secretariat team, there are a couple of questions around some of the key results areas in the chat, if you're able to try and respond to those. And also, Diane, for you, a question from Hannah about predictions for the final figure in the next 10 weeks or so. I'll pass that easy question off to you. But communities delegation, was there someone, sorry, or perhaps that hand went down. Oh, good. Then maybe we'll just go to the easy question about predictions for the next 10 weeks, Diane. But also, if colleagues from the Secretariat want to jump in on the key results areas for the data, about whether lives impacted is in there, and when they can see that, as well as the HIV prevention services, et cetera.
Thanks, Katie. I'll kick off, and I think I'll also ask Ernest to come in on the issue of the prevention services and things like that, because we spent a lot of time on that over the last few weeks, and Ernest has all of the detail. Hannah, needless to say, I have many scenarios of what my predictions are in terms of the projected outcome for the replenishment. What I will say is we are aggressively chasing the 18 billion target. It's a very heavy lift in the current environment, as you know. But as I said earlier, our pressure on all of our existing donors is to maintain or increase their commitments. And then we are going after some of the emerging donors and some of the private sector donors to increase or to join us. So for now, we're all systems go to get as high a possible outcome. And yeah, that's about it in terms of what I'm going to be able to say on that. But I'm hoping for a good couple of weeks in September where the rolling replenishment number will increase dramatically over the next few weeks. So watch this space. Ernest, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the numbers that look like they've gone down, because there's interesting context for that?
Yes, very, very quickly. First of all, there is a question about lives impacted as well for malaria. Yes, we have the mosquito nets distributed is one of the key headline numbers. But actually, if you look at the report itself, they are also keep going down. Actually, I wanted to show that. Keep going. Next one. Next one. No, next one there. So if you look at this slide, of course, I had 20 minutes to present everything. So there's much more in there. Like, for instance, you can see 173 million cases of malaria were treated in 2024. You see pregnant women who received preventive therapy. Of course, we talked about SMC. So there's much more than just the mosquito nets. Moving on to the question about the numbers, if you compare these numbers year on year, some of them are likely to look like drops. There are two things that are happening here. The first one is 2024 is the first year we are reporting GC7 numbers. And our numbers sometimes are not comparable year on year, especially when you move from one cycle, GC6 to GC7Y, because indicators are recalibrated or they are retooled every new cycle. And as we invest more and more, we are recognizing that, and it's good we have this slide up. We are recognizing that our fight against these diseases need to more and more move from such throwing out a wide net to being more focused in the areas with greatest need. And that's what is happening when it comes to HIV prevention services and also testing, where we would have tested everyone who walked down a certain street in a certain capital. We now know very well that we need to go to the areas that have greatest need. We may test smaller numbers, but actually achieve greater impact. And that is, again, also the kind of approach we are taking with our prevention services, both for general population, but also for key populations. So we are retooling our indicators to go to areas with greatest need. And actually, if you look at impact, achieve higher impacts, even when the numbers are lower. So that would explain some of the drops year on year, but it doesn't necessarily show a change in ambition or a change in a drop in impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernest and Diane, for those sort of what will have to be final reflections for today. I've popped into the chat just a final reminder about sort of why this information is shared today, that it's going to be coming out on the listserv, but it's to support your preparation and your understanding ahead of the launch of the report. And this information won't be able to be shared until after. And I hope Christy appreciates how much I am harping on the embargo, because we do recognize it as a privilege, and we really appreciate, I think, as advocates, being able to get an early look at this information, so that we can think about our communications for when the report is launched. So thank you again, Diane, Ernest, Charlie, and everybody behind the scenes with you for sharing this with us today. We certainly wish you the best of luck and look forward to all of those other resources that are being shared and that were noted. And just a couple of final things. We've just popped into the link, how to keep in touch with us at GFAN around the World Health Summit, which is a big focus of work for us in the coming weeks. We'll talk more about that on future calls, but you can see a QR code there on your screen, as well as a link in the chat to keep in touch with us if that is an event that you are also attending and interested in being a part of what GFAN is planning, and with our many partners who are there. So I will just say thank you to everyone for the call today. Thank you for your questions and your engagement. I know it was a lot to listen to, and also we've gone a few minutes over, and with thanks to our interpreters, I think, for sticking with us until the very end. Have a great rest of your days, colleagues, and look forward to all of the work in the coming weeks and several months. Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Dankeschön.